Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we discuss day-to-day problems people face in their lives. Let's start with the video. Okay, I feel like this is super out of line, but I'm curious how a group of strangers would interpret this situation. I recently graduated college and luckily have saved enough money for a down payment to buy my first home. I've secured a stable professional job that gives me the security to feel ready for such a big commitment. I haven't bought it yet, but I am in the process of looking for a duplex that would serve as a good starter investment. My plan was to rent out one of the units to help pay most of my mortgage and live in the other with my boyfriend and split the remaining costs. We have lived with his cousin in the past. He's great and considerate. I'd even consider him a friend of mine. So when my boyfriend brought up him maybe living with us in our unit, I was open to it. I expect the remainder of the mortgage to be around $600 with the utilities estimated at about $100 to $200 per month. I told my boyfriend that would be great for all of us and he'd only have to pay a few hundred, making it very affordable for all of us. 800 divided by 3 is 266, which is extremely cheap. We even live in a large metro area where an unrenovated one-bedroom goes for over $1,000 plus utilities. My boyfriend quickly reacted negatively and told me that he wouldn't let his cousin pay my mortgage. I told him it's only fair since he'd be taking up a bedroom I could otherwise use in an art room or an office. He then told me he wouldn't even be helping pay my mortgage. I was so confused. I expected that he'd be okay paying half the bills. First, they're going to be very low since I'm renting one of the units. Secondly, if it's our home, I shouldn't be the only one paying for it, regardless of whose name is on the mortgage. He seems to think it's unfair for me to expect them to pay any more than just the utilities price because ultimately it's my asset and investment. I think he sees it as them paying for me to own a home. The truth is, I can afford it without any help. It's more about the principle for me. I don't want to be a breadwinner for my boyfriend and his cousin. I think that would mean they're benefiting from my accomplishment. In addition, I'm going to pay the entire down payment, obviously. So us splitting the rent would be the same as us living anywhere else together. I see this a lot on Reddit and I don't get it. Do they expect to live for free with you carrying them on your back? If they rent an apartment, they are paying someone's mortgage, whether it be a person or a company. Do they expect a stake in the apartment they are renting? Crazy. Don't let either of them move in without a signed lease, as it's obvious. Boyfriend, or both boyfriend and cousin, will give you a hard time about paying it. And once they're moved in, it's a lot harder to get them out or to pay rent than if you have a lease signed ahead of time. Then, a bit being okay paying $200 to $300 for a place to live is them being cheap and selfish, and they should find out real quick how good of a deal you're giving them once they look for their own places and realize rent is triple that. Do not let either of them move in without a lease. If the two of you were renting a house, the rent would cover the owner's mortgage, taxes, insurance, plus profit. If you're only expecting your partner to pay half of the actual expenses and not the down payment, capital improvements, etc., then that is only fair. It's what my partner pays as reimbursement of expenses for living with me in the house that I own. If either of them are expecting free housing from you, I would either delay your purchase or rent rooms to other people and tell the guys to get their own place. I own a house too, and this issue has come up before when my boyfriend moved in. He said the same thing. Why should I pay the mortgage when I don't own the house? And on and on. Honestly, I reminded him that he's welcome to go find a room on his own, which would easily cost 2 or 3 times what he will be paying here. No matter where he lives, he's paying somebody's mortgage. I'm not sure where this sense of entitlement comes from. It shocked me coming from my boyfriend. Anyway, have them both sign a lease when you come to an agreement. I have my tenants on a month-to-month lease and it's been great. And good luck buying a house. Same thing I said. He even said if I don't let him live there, he might just get his own apartment with his cousin. I told him to feel free. His old 2-bedroom in our city was $2,400 per month, so I know he won't. Since you've been through this and your boyfriend is on a lease, did you pay a lawyer to write it up or did you just do it yourself? Your boyfriend is either an a-hole or an idiot. There is no in between. The fact that he believes he should live in a building without paying rent mortgage is amazing. It's even more amazing that he believes he should live in the building you are purchasing without contributing. It's great you can afford it without him, as I'd consider moving in alone. Please do not get browbeaten into letting anyone live in your home rent-free. You should be treated as the landlord and get them to pay rent, but make sure you have some form of agreement in writing. Otherwise, if you want anyone to leave, you may have a hard time. Many parents even get their adult kids to pay rent just to teach them life lessons. Why should your boyfriend think you should support him and his cousin by giving them rent-free accommodation? Obviously, your boyfriend is being ridiculous because please think long and hard before buying a duplex. Being a landlord is much more than collecting the rent each month. Do you have any experience in finding screening tenants? What about home repairs? They'll be calling you when their toilet leaks or their stuff breaks. Can you fix it? Can you afford to hire someone to replace things as they come up? What if they don't pay rent or cause damage disturbances? Are you familiar with the eviction process and the cost in your area? Can you cover the whole mortgage in the meantime without rental income? There are many unforeseen expenses when you buy a house. Within the first 3 months of buying my house, I had to replace the dryer and the dishwasher, have the fireplace repaired, and had a pipe burst. You'll have 2 units you'll be responsible for. You might really want to consider whether a duplex is the best course for your first purchase. Next story. Me, 24 female, and my husband, 27 male, got married on the 2nd after being together for 4 years and living together for 3.5. It was a huge DIY wedding and we were very stressed out, but we barely argued and were more excited than ever. Well, fast forward to the wedding reception, my husband got way too drunk. I do not drink, by the way. He was stumbling and slurring his words, telling me the same stories over and over again, forgetting what I said and what I did. He was a hot mess and it was only 5:30. We got married at 3. He has had an issue with drinking for years and it took us getting together for him to realize it. He was sober for 8 months last year and decided to start drinking again, here and there. He did later admit to drinking before the wedding and having way too many shots and beers at the wedding. I just can't forgive him. Now when I think about our wedding, I see myself taking care of him. I see him sloppy and saying socially inappropriate things like he always does when he's drunk. He was demanding our DJ take some food after our DJ said twice he was all right. He just kept getting louder and louder in our DJ's face until I told him to knock it off. So embarrassing. I can't stop thinking about him getting drunk at our wedding reception. And now I'm getting the pictures back and I found this picture of him and one of my bridesmaids where he's grabbing his hand around her upper waist right under her boob and he has her pressed against him. I can't figure out how to add the pic and I'm just so uncomfortable and upset now. I have never had someone's husband or someone I'm not with romantically touch me like this ever, let alone during a picture. It just feels very inappropriate. Especially because I can't find a single picture of him touching me that way at the wedding. I'm not sure where to go from here. He keeps saying things like, I didn't mean it and I would never do something like that to you. I just can't forgive him. You unfortunately have been denial about what he is. He's an alcoholic and you have now married him. Consider attending AI Anon meetings to help take care of yourself. Not sure what else to say other than it sounds like you have some thinking to do and maybe some hard choices to consider making as to what you want to do next. I hope things work out how you want them to. Bingo. Came here to suggest AI Anon, original poster, or anyone else in a similar situation. AI Anon is not the same as Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a 12-step program and support group similar to AA, but it's for the family and loved ones of alcoholics and drug addicts. It was created by the family and loved ones of the founders of AA. You'll receive incredible support there from people who know exactly how you're feeling. They can give support and help you navigate whatever you choose to do as a next step. But the purpose of AI Anon isn't for having the family help the alcoholic, but it's to help you learn to stay emotionally healthy regardless of his decision to drink. It's a program focused on your needs, not his. I'm a recovering alcoholic with almost 6 years in sobriety, and I'm super active in AA. It's a central part of my overall lifestyle. My wife is an AI Anon member, and she told me that it's completely changed her life. She always recommends that I share this link when telling anyone about AI Anon for the first time. It's a list of do's and don'ts for you, and it's a brief summary of the mindset of the program of AI Anon. My dear, you married an alcoholic who just relapsed. You're in no way prepared to deal with this alone. Please go to AI Anon and see a therapist. It's hell living with an active addict. I've been one and I've been married to one. See if he's willing to get into treatment. If he says no, leave. He won't get better until he hits bottom. I used to drink like your husband. I'm almost 2 years sober now and recently married. I will say with surety, your husband knows this is an issue and is probably very ashamed and very scared to stay sober. I really hope that he desires to get well and that your marriage can recover. We with drinking problems can recover and can have an amazing life sober. I just wanted to say that I'm praying for you that he wants that and you guys can have a happy life. Hi. So your husband is where my husband was 6 months ago. I was in your shoes and almost ran. He also had a bad relationship with alcohol, and for his privacy, I won't go too far into details. Not dependent, but didn't know how to stop sometimes. Never mean or angry when drunk, but stupid. One day he came home plastered with some random person in tow who was catatonically drunk. I almost left right there to stay in a hotel. I ended up staying home that night. The next day we talked about it. I told him that this was not the life I would be living with him. He needed to A, stop drinking, B, get individual therapy, and C, go to couples counseling with me. He hasn't drank since and is doing all the therapies. Our relationship is stronger, but he has been having a rough time learning how to live sober. You can get past this, but it will take being a dedicated team in his recovery. He has to want to be sober and want to be the partner you need him to be. I really hope that you're able to get on the same page of sobriety and work through it. It won't be easy, but it can be worth it. If you ever want to talk, please feel free to private message me. I'm happy to know that we could have a happy ending. I will talk to him about therapy and couples counseling. He says he would like to quit drinking again and work on things. I'm just having a hard time internally trying to forgive him. I spent so much time and money planning and putting together this wedding, so it would be perfect, and he did the one thing he knew that would hurt me the most. Thank you for your advice. Next story. When I, 25 female, was 3 months old, my parents split and my birth mother gave up all her rights and never contacted us. My dad, 54 male, married my stepmom, 47 female. 3 months later, arranged marriage, and together they had my 2 younger sisters, 20 female and 17 female. The problem is, I only found out she was my stepmother when I was 18. Sure, she took great care of me. I never went hungry. I was looked after well. She taught me good manners, and I grew up fairly well adjusted. But the signs were always there. How after a fight with my father, she'd take my sisters and go to her room, while completely ignoring me. How she always kisses them goodnight and never me. How she pushed me away when I went for a hug and excused it by saying I smelled, but always hugged my sisters and called them sweetie and baby. It really hurt, especially because back then I didn't know what I'd done to deserve being singled out. I thought she was my birth mother. I thought there must have been something wrong with me, for my own mother to not love me enough as she did my sisters. But I tried my best to make her love me anyway, for her approval. Though I did have my fair share of screaming fights with her, nearly all of them ended with me sobbing, "Why don't you love me enough?" Anyway, I found out the truth at 18 and it was rough for a while. Our relationship suffered for a while, but when I moved out for uni, it got better. We still fought sometimes, but I realized why she was the way she was, my dad. He also thought she'd treat me like I wasn't her own, so when I was a baby, he preemptively argued with her about her not caring about me, etc. He regretted them afterwards, but the damage was done and she could never bring herself to love me properly. Recently, I got married and lived with my husband in another country for 6 months. I came back to my parents' house while working on my husband's immigration process and expect to be here for another 2 to 3 months to save on rent. But I'm still a full-time student and quite broke from the immigration costs. We've been getting along fairly well, more like cousins than mother and daughter. But within a month of me coming back, we've had 2 fights. One was a blowout one with both of us screaming at each other, and while she instigated it, I did say some nasty things back. We made up after a few days with me apologizing. The second one was last night, where I went to the toilet, then my sister, 20 female, went to the toilet right after me. At 2 a.m., we were all on the first floor and it was a bit loud. The door is old and creaky. When I came out to use the toilet again a bit later, my stepmom started screaming at me for never letting her sleep and trapezing around at all hours, which I tried to tell her wasn't just me, but she didn't listen. Angrily, I shut her bedroom door and went to the toilet, then went to bed. In the morning, I hear her loudly complaining to the same sister about how I constantly use the toilet and keep her awake, which is why she wakes up at 2 p.m. every day she doesn't work, and how glad she'll be when the nuisance leaves the house for good. Like every time, I tell myself her words don't matter. Like every time, my heart feels ripped out of my chest anyway. I help around the house, I do the dishes, I vacuum, and I help my stepmom with cooking. Neither of my sisters do anything except tidy their room, and 20 female cooks dinner once a month or so. Just when I started thinking I might be enough for her to love, something like this happens and I feel like I'm back to square one. I'm sick and tired of it. I want to stop caring about her, but it's so hard. She's the only mother I've got, and I know she loves me in her own way, but it's just not enough for me. How do I just stop caring about what she thinks of me? Original poster. At some point, you have to just acknowledge that you pulled a losing ticket in the mother lottery twice. When you stop expecting your stepmother to ever love you or even like you as a person, no matter how much you try to make yourself seem more lovable, things will get easier for you. You wouldn't fight this hard to try to improve a dysfunctional friendship, would you? Instead of working to win the love of your stepmother, look around at the people who do love you, your father, your sisters maybe, you didn't say much about them, your husband and your friends. You still have a loving family, so ask them to surround you with the love and assurance you need. You are a loving and lovable person, despite your stepmother's mistreatment of you. For the next few months, pretend you're a guest in her household rather than a family member. Stay out of her way, continue to help with the cooking and chores, and plan to socialize more outside the home. It might be therapeutic for you to take your dad out alone and ask him to tell you more about your birth mom. And also tell him that a second wife has always made your life difficult, but you're trying to come to terms with it as an adult. Ask him for his blessing and his unconditional love and support, and he is really the only parent you will ever have. I'm sorry, original poster, your reality sucks, but the sooner you accept it rather than trying to change something that's beyond your control, the easier it will be for you to move beyond this sad situation. You deserve a happier life as an adult, and it's starting with writing off any hope of a mother-daughter relationship with your stepmother. I love my dad and my sisters. I was jealous of them when I was a kid and didn't treat them well. But when I was 18, I realized that they weren't the issue. We're quite close now, which also seems to peeve my stepmother off a lot. Whenever we're hanging out together, she tells them to go off and study, or if we're laughing, she tells us all to be quiet and stop disturbing her. I guess she definitely has issues of her own, and she'd do well with therapy, but unfortunately, in our culture, that's not considered right. And so it's very slim chances of that happening. Still, your advice is quite useful, and I'll definitely try and put my dreams of having a loving mother behind me, because it's just too painful at this point to keep holding on.